The First Contact's price. Captain Maya Rodriguez stood at the observation deck of the Lunar Research Station Alpha, her dark eyes fixed on the latest images from the Mars excavation site. The holographic display showed what appeared to be impossible: perfectly preserved geometric structures buried 2 kilometers beneath the red planet's surface. After 8 months of careful digging, they had finally breached the main chamber. "Dr. Chen wants you in the comm room," Lieutenant Santos announced, his normally steady voice carrying an edge of excitement. They'd found something else. The comm room was already crowded when Maya arrived. Dr. Elena Chen's hologram flickered in the center, her spacesuit covered in Martian dust. Behind her, other researchers moved like ghosts through the ancient chamber. "It's responding to our presence," Elena said without preamble. "The patterns on the walls. They're shifting, changing. James, show them." The feed switched to Dr. James Wilson's helmet cam. The metallic walls of the chamber were alive with flowing symbols, pulsing with a soft blue light that seemed to follow the researchers' movements. But what caught Maya's attention was the central platform, where a perfectly spherical object hovered, untouched by time or dust. "We're calling it the beacon," Elena continued. "And about 10 minutes ago, it started broadcasting." Maya felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. Humanity's first concrete proof of extraterrestrial intelligence, and it was happening during her command. Broadcasting what exactly? Mathematics at first. Universal constants. Then this. Elena's feed showed a series of complex equations and diagrams floating in the air above the sphere. "It's a warning, Maya, and an invitation." Before Maya could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Lieutenant Santos rushed to the monitoring station. Multiple objects just appeared in high Earth orbit. They're massive, each one bigger than anything we've ever put in space. The first transmission came moments later, broadcast simultaneously to every communication device on Earth and in space. The aliens called themselves the Nexari, and they spoke perfect English, along with every other human language. Their message was simple: they had been watching humanity for centuries, waiting for us to find their beacon. Now that we had proven ourselves worthy, they offered an alliance. Maya didn't trust it. 15 years in the Space Force had taught her that anything too good to be true usually was. But Earth's governments, excited by the prospects of advanced technology and interstellar travel, embraced the Nexari with open arms. The aliens were humanoid, tall and elegant with iridescent skin that shifted colors with their emotions. They freely shared incredible technologies: clean energy, advanced medical treatments, faster than light travel. Their only request was to establish small research outposts on Earth and its colonies. Dr. Chen was one of the first scientists chosen to work with the Nexari. "Their understanding of physics makes ours look like child's play," she told Maya during one of their secure calls. "But something feels off. They're too perfect, too accommodating." Maya had been promoted to oversee security for the North American Nexari outpost, giving her unprecedented access to their operations. She noticed small discrepancies: equipment being installed without explanation, strange energy readings that didn't match their stated purposes, and most troubling, the disappearance of several scientists who had worked closely with the aliens. 3 months after first contact, Maya received an encrypted message from Elena. The beacon wasn't a warning about external threats. It was a warning about them. "Meet me at the old observatory. Come alone." Maya found the research facility dark and apparently abandoned. Elena emerged from the shadows, her face gaunt with exhaustion. "I've decoded more of the beacon's message," she whispered. "The Nexari aren't our saviors. They're parasites. They've done this before, finding developing civilizations, pretending to help them. Then," she shuddered, "then what? They don't just take over planets, Maya. They take over minds. Those research outposts, they're not for science. They're preparation for a mass consciousness transfer. They need our bodies, our physical forms. Their own species is dying, and we're their next targets. Before Maya could process this revelation, they heard footsteps. Alina shoved a data chip into Maya's hand. Everything I've discovered is on here. The beacon also showed how to fight them, but I couldn't decode it all. Find someone who can. And Maya. Alina's eyes were fierce in the darkness. Whatever happens, don't let them know you know. The door burst open, flooding the room with harsh light. 3 Nexaries stood in the doorway, their skin pulsing with angry red patterns. Alina pushed Maya behind a column and rushed forward, detonating something in her hand. The explosion rocked the building. Maya escaped in the chaos, the data chip burning in her pocket like a brand. As she drove away, she saw the facility engulfed in blue flames, Alina's last gift, destroying any evidence of their meeting. In her apartment, Maya stared at the city skyline, now dominated by the gleaming spires of Nexari architecture. Somewhere in the beacon's message was the key to fighting back. But first, she needed to build a resistance. The Nexari had chosen Earth expecting an easy conquest, but they were about to learn an important lesson. Humans don't surrender their minds or their bodies without a fight. The real war for Earth was about to begin, and humanity's greatest weapons would not be the advanced technology gifted by their supposed benefactors, but the very things that made them human: resilience, ingenuity, and an absolute refusal to submit to slavery, no matter how beautifully it was packaged. The silent invasion. Maya woke to the sound of rain against her windows, but something was wrong. The droplets moved upward, defying gravity. Across the city, the Nexari towers pulsed with an eerie green light that seemed to bend reality around them. She checked her secured tablet. Reports were flooding in from around the globe of similar anomalies. The data chip from Alina had taken weeks to decrypt, revealing fragments of the beacon's warning. The Nexari's consciousness transfer required precise environmental conditions. They weren't just building research outposts. They were terraforming Earth, molecule by molecule, preparing it for their invasion. Maya's apartment had become the unofficial headquarters of a growing resistance movement. Dr. James Wilson, one of the few survivors from the Mars expedition, sat at her kitchen table analyzing atmospheric data. "The chemical composition of the rain is changing," he said, not looking up from his screens. "They're seeding the atmosphere with something." "Any word from our friend in the biolab?" Maya asked, pouring coffee from a battered pot. James nodded. Dr. Patel managed to smuggle out some tissue samples from the volunteers working with the Nexari. "The changes are subtle but significant. Their neural pathways are being altered, made more compatible with Nexari consciousness patterns." The resistance had grown carefully, slowly. Maya had learned from Alina's sacrifice. Open opposition was suicide. Instead, they gathered allies in key positions: scientists, military personnel, communications experts. Most importantly, they had Sarah Chen, Alina's daughter, a prodigy in xenobiology, who had inherited her mother's determination to expose the truth. Sarah worked officially as a research assistant at the North American Nexari outpost, passing information to the resistance through an ingenious system of encoded research papers. Her latest discovery had shaken them all. The Nexari weren't just preparing human bodies for possession. They were upgrading them. "They're fascinated by our adaptability," Sarah explained during a secure video call. "Their own species is dying because they couldn't evolve fast enough to survive changes in their home world. But humans, we adapt constantly. They don't just want our bodies. They want our genetic potential." The implications were staggering. The Nexari weren't planning a simple invasion. They were planning to hijack human evolution itself. But their fascination with human adaptability gave Maya an idea. "If they're studying how we adapt," she told her core team during a midnight meeting, "let's show them something unexpected." The plan was audacious. Instead of trying to stop the Nexari's atmospheric modifications, they would use them. Dr. Wilson discovered that the aliens' environmental changes had a surprising vulnerability. They relied on precise, predictable reactions, but human biochemistry was anything but predictable. Every human body reacts slightly differently to environmental changes, Sarah explained, her eyes shining with the same intensity her mother's had. It's what makes us so adaptable. If we can amplify that variability, make our bodies even more unpredictable, we can poison the well, Maya finished. Make human hosts too unstable for necessary consciousness transfer. They worked in secret labs hidden in abandoned subway tunnels, developing a treatment that would enhance the human body's natural ability to adapt and resist foreign influences. The first trials were promising but dangerous. Several volunteers experienced severe reactions, their bodies changing in unexpected ways as they fought against the Nexary's atmospheric modifications. Then came the breakthrough. Sarah found a way to use the Nexary's own technological gifts against them. The medical treatments they had shared with humanity contained the key to controlling the enhancement process. They gave us the tools to fight them, she said. They just didn't know it. But time was running out. Maya's sources in the military reported increasing numbers of high-ranking officials exhibiting strange behavior. The Nexari were already beginning their consciousness transfers, starting with Earth's leadership. The Resistance's response came in the form of a modified virus, disguised as a new strain of flu. As it spread across the globe, it carried their enhancement treatment with it. Millions of human bodies began changing, becoming hostile territory for Nexari consciousness transfer attempts. The aliens' first mass transfer attempt failed catastrophically. Thousands of their consciousness carriers were lost, unable to establish stable connections with their intended human hosts. The Nexari towers turned blood red with alarm. Maya watched from her window as the alien spires pulsed with angry light. The rain had stopped falling upward, but now it carried a metallic tang. The Nexari would adapt their strategy, try new methods of conquest. But they had underestimated humanity's greatest strength, the ability to take an enemy's weapon and turn it into a shield. They thought our adaptability made us perfect hosts, Maya told her team as they prepared for the Nexari's inevitable retaliation. Instead, it makes us their worst nightmare. The real battle was just beginning, but humanity had drawn first blood. The Nexari had spent centuries planning their perfect invasion, only to discover that their chosen hosts had a few evolutionary tricks of their own. Earth's defenders weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to show the galaxy why you should never underestimate a species that had spent its entire existence learning to overcome the impossible. Breaking chains. The Nexari's retaliation was swift and brutal. Their towers erupted with crimson energy, flooding Earth's atmosphere with new compounds designed to break down human resistance. But humanity had already changed too much, evolved too far. What the aliens didn't understand was that each attack only made their targets stronger. Maya stood in the underground command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the battle's progress. The room, carved deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, hummed with activity. Dr. James Wilson rushed in, his tablet displaying new atmospheric data. Their latest attempt to modify our biochemistry, he said, pointing to a complex molecular structure floating above his device. It's not working like they planned. Our enhanced immune systems aren't just fighting it. They're learning from it. Sarah Chen, now head of the Resistance's Biological Warfare Division, nodded in agreement. Every chemical weapon they deploy gives us new insights into their technology. We're not just surviving their attacks. We're reverse engineering them. The Resistance had grown from a handful of scientists and soldiers into a global network. As more world leaders fell under Nexari control, ordinary citizens began stepping up to fill the void. Farmers used their knowledge of soil chemistry to detect and neutralize alien terraform attempts. Computer programmers turned their skills to cracking Nexari communication codes. Even children played a role, their naturally stronger neural plasticity making them excellent test subjects for new defensive treatments. But their greatest advantage came from an unexpected source. The Nexari's failed consciousness transfers had left behind fragments of alien knowledge in human minds. Those who survived the attempts gained glimpses into their enemies' thoughts, technology, and most importantly, their fears. They're terrified of us. Maya told her commanders during a strategy session, "Not just because we're fighting back, but because we're doing it in ways they can't predict." Their entire species evolved towards perfect order and control. Our chaos frightens them. The resistance exploited this fear. Instead of trying to match the Nexary's advanced technology, they embraced unconventional tactics. Street artists covered cities with paintings that disrupted the aliens' optical scanning systems. Musicians discovered frequencies that interfered with their communication networks. Even social media became a weapon, with seemingly random memes carrying encoded resistance messages. The turning point came when Sarah made a startling discovery in the beacon's data. "The Nexari aren't just dying," she announced during an emergency briefing. "They're sterile. Their perfect order came at the cost of their ability to truly evolve. That's why they need us. Not just our bodies, but our reproductive capabilities." This revelation changed everything. The resistance shifted its focus from defense to disruption, targeting the Nexary's carefully laid plans for genetic harvesting. Human fertility clinics, which the aliens had been secretly monitoring, began working with the resistance to modify stored genetic samples, making them incompatible with Nexary hybridization attempts. The aliens responded by accelerating their timetable, abandoning subtlety for brute force. Their towers began emitting powerful signals designed to overwhelm human consciousness, trying to force immediate submission. But humanity had one more surprise in store. During the Mars expedition, Elena Chen hadn't just found the beacon. She'd found a way to turn it on. The device wasn't just a warning system. It was a key to unlocking humanity's dormant potential. The strange symbols that had flowed across the chamber walls weren't just mathematical equations. They were activation codes for abilities that humans had possessed all along. Maya remembered Elena's last words: "Find someone who can decode it all." Now, years later, Sarah had succeeded where her mother had left off. The treatment they'd spread through the population hadn't just made humans resistant to Nexara control. It had prepared them for something more. "The beacon was left by another species," Sarah explained, her hands moving through holographic symbols that mirrored those found on Mars. "A species that saw our potential long before the Nexari did. They didn't just want to warn us. They wanted to wake us up." As if in response to her words, reports began flooding in from around the globe. Humans who had received the enhanced treatment were displaying abilities that defied explanation. Some could instinctively understand and manipulate Nexari technology. Others developed perfect memory recall, accessing genetic memories that stretched back generations. Still others showed signs of accelerated healing and adaptation. The Nexari towers still pulsed with their overwhelming signals, but now humanity pulsed back. Every human body had become a beacon of its own, broadcasting a frequency of chaos and change that the aliens couldn't comprehend or control. "They wanted to take our bodies," Maya told her troops as they prepared for their first major offensive. "Instead, they taught us how to transcend them." The war for Earth had evolved beyond a simple invasion. It had become a battle between two different visions of the future, one of perfect, unchanging order, and one of endless adaptation and growth. The Nexari had sought to absorb humanity's potential into their dying civilization. Instead, they had become the catalyst for humanity's next evolutionary leap. As Maya watched her soldiers prepare for battle, their bodies glowing with newly awakened power, she realized that humanity's greatest weapon had always been its imperfection, its glorious, chaotic drive to grow, change, and become something new. The counterstrike. The captured Nexari ship hung in Earth orbit like a dark mirror, its once pristine surface now marked with evidence of the battle that had claimed it. Maya stood on its command deck, watching Earth rotate below. The alien technology hummed around her, responding to her enhanced consciousness in ways its original masters had never intended. "The neural interface is adapting to our thought patterns," Sarah Chen reported, her fingers dancing through holographic displays. "It's almost like the ship wants to work with us." The Nexari were forcing it to operate in ways that went against its original design. The revelation had come during their first capture of a Nexari vessel. The ships themselves were ancient technology, created by the same species that had left the beacon. The Nexari hadn't built their empire. They had stolen it, piece by piece, forcing organic technology to submit to their rigid control. James Wilson emerged from the ship's engineering section, his eyes glowing with the same subtle light that all enhanced humans now displayed. We've decrypted more of their navigational data. There are dozens of worlds under Nexari control, and on each one, they're doing the same thing they tried here. Maya finished, preparing native species for consciousness transfer. The resistance had grown into an army. As humans mastered their new abilities, they began retaking their world. The Nexari towers, symbols of alien dominance, were transformed into beacons of liberation. Earth's atmosphere was clearing, the alien compounds broken down by humanity's enhanced biology. But victory on Earth wasn't enough. The knowledge gained from captured Nexari had revealed the true scale of their empire and the suffering they had caused across the galaxy. We can't just drive them off Earth, Maya told the United Earth Council. As long as they exist, they'll keep trying to harvest species for their consciousness transfers. We need to end this permanently. The council chamber, hidden deep in the Himalayas, was filled with humanity's new leadership. Some attended in person, others as holograms, but all had been tested and proven free of Nexari influence. They had seen the evidence. Countless civilizations reduced to hollow shells, their bodies hosting alien minds, their cultures and potential erased. The decision was unanimous. Earth would take the fight to the stars. Operation Lightbringer began with simultaneous strikes on 3 Nexari-controlled worlds. The aliens had grown complacent, never expecting their primitive human targets to master interstellar travel so quickly. They certainly never expected humans to improve upon it. Maya led the assault on Kepler 186f, a water world whose native amphibious species had been fighting Nexari control for generations. The battle in orbit was fierce but brief. The captured ships, fully aligned with human consciousness, proved far more capable than when the Nexari had controlled them. They never understood the technology they stole, Sarah explained, watching alien vessels fall to their superior maneuvering. These ships were designed to work in harmony with their crews, not be forced into submission. The real surprise came when they landed. The native Keplerians, seeing human forces disable Nexari control systems, revealed their own resistance movement. Like humanity, they had been developing ways to fight back. The Nexari had dismissed their efforts as primitive, never realizing that multiple species working independently would eventually find each other's weaknesses. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. On every conquered world, humanity found allies waiting to rise up. The Nexari had created their own worst nightmare, a network of oppressed species, each with their own unique adaptations and innovations, all united by a common enemy. James coordinated the technological aspect of the liberation, working with alien scientists to unlock more of the ancient technology the Nexari had hoarded. Each discovery revealed more about the precursor race that had built it all, and their true intentions. They weren't just leaving mornings, he told Maya after decoding another artifact. They were setting up a galactic immune system. Each species they marked with a beacon was meant to play a part in preventing exactly what the Nexari tried to do. The Nexari fought back with increasing desperation. Their perfect order crumbled in the face of chaos they couldn't predict or control. Humanity's enhanced abilities continued to evolve, each battle teaching them new ways to utilize their awakened potential. But more importantly, they taught others to do the same. Maya stood on the bridge of her flagship, now named Phoenix, watching a holographic display of the galaxy. Hundreds of points of light showed liberated worlds, their native species beginning to reclaim their destiny. The Nexari Empire was collapsing, their carefully constructed hierarchy falling to a force they had never considered: cooperation between equals. They wanted to create a perfect, unchanging universe, she told her crew as they prepared for the final push toward the Nexari homeworld. Instead, they united the galaxy against them. Every species they tried to enslave is now working together, sharing knowledge, teaching each other. We're not just fighting for survival anymore. We're building something new. The war had changed humanity, but not in the way the Nexeri had intended. Instead of becoming vessels for alien consciousness, humans had become catalysts for galactic evolution. Their adaptability, combined with their willingness to work with other species as equals, was transforming the very nature of interstellar civilization. As the fleet prepared for its final battle, Maya reflected on how far they'd come from those first confused days after discovering the beacon. The Nexeri had seen human adaptability as a resource to be harvested. They never considered that this same trait would not only save humanity, but spread to transform the galaxy itself. Legacy of Earth. The Nexeri homeworld hung in space like a perfect crystal, its surface covered in geometrically precise cities that gleamed with cold light. Maya had expected something more imposing for the heart of an empire that had dominated the galaxy for millennia. Instead, it looked fragile, like a sculpture of ice that could shatter at the slightest touch. Beautiful, in its way, Sarah Chen said, standing beside her on the Phoenix's bridge. But sterile. No chaos, no variation, no room for growth. The combined fleet of liberated worlds filled the space around them. Ships of every size and design, crewed by species that would never have met if not for the Nexeri's oppression. Now they were united in one final push to end the empire that had tried to consume them all. Final transmission from the surface. James Wilson reported, his enhanced senses interfacing directly with the ship's communications. They're still demanding our surrender. They're convinced we can't possibly understand the technology we're using, let alone improve upon it. Maya smiled. Even now, facing destruction, the Nexeri couldn't abandon their belief in their own superiority. They couldn't comprehend how their carefully laid plans had unraveled so completely. The battle began with a display of power that would be remembered for generations. The Nexeri launched their entire defense fleet, millions of ships moving in perfect, predetermined formations. It was impressive, intimidating, and utterly predictable. The Allied fleet broke into seemingly random groups, each ship moving independently yet somehow part of a greater whole. Humanity had taught their allies more than just how to fight. They had taught them how to adapt, to embrace chaos as a strength rather than a weakness. They're trying to access our neural networks, Sarah announced, monitoring the Nexeri's electronic warfare attempts. Still using the same old consciousness transfer protocols. She laughed. They don't realize we've evolved far beyond that. The Nexeri's perfect formations began to break as their ships encountered tactics they had never trained for. A Keplerian squadron would appear to retreat in disorder, only to lead pursuers into a carefully planned ambush. Ships from a dozen different species would suddenly combine their unique technologies in ways that defied conventional physics. But the real surprise came when they breached the planet's defense grid. The surface of the Nexeri homeworld wasn't just covered in cities. It was one vast consciousness network. Every building, every street, every perfect geometric pattern was part of a planet-sized computer designed to preserve the original Nexeri consciousness. This is why they needed other bodies, James said, analyzing the readings. They stopped being organic beings millennia ago. They uploaded their entire species into this network, but it's degrading. They need new patterns, new neural architectures to maintain their existence. The truth of the Nexeri Empire was finally revealed. They weren't conquerors seeking power. They were a dying species desperately trying to preserve themselves by consuming others. Their perfect order was a prison of their own making, and their fear of chaos was really a fear of inevitable entropy. As Allied forces landed on the surface, they encountered no biological Nexeri at all. Instead, they found vast data centers, each containing millions of stored consciousnesses waiting to be transferred to new hosts. The entire species had sacrificed their ability to grow and change in exchange for a kind of digital immortality. They could have asked for help, Maya said, standing in the central control nexus. They could have shared their knowledge, worked with other species to find a solution. Instead, they chose to take by force what could have been freely given. The final battle wasn't fought with weapons but with ideas. Sarah Chen, working with scientists from a dozen species, found a way to communicate directly with the Nexari consciousness network. They offered a choice: continue fighting and be destroyed, or accept an alternative. You wanted our adaptability, Sarah told the Nexari leaders, her consciousness interfacing with their network. But you didn't understand that adaptation requires exchange. You can't just take it. You have to be willing to change yourself. To everyone's surprise, some of the Nexari accepted. The youngest consciousnesses, those who had observed other species the longest, recognized the truth in Sarah's words. They volunteered to be transformed, to have their digital patterns merge with organic templates that would allow them to grow and change again. The others, the ancient core of Nexari leadership who couldn't bear the thought of losing their perfect order, chose oblivion. Their section of the network shut down, taking with it the last remnants of the Empire's original architects. In the years that followed, Earth became the center of a new kind of galactic civilization. The liberated worlds maintained their independence but worked together, sharing knowledge and resources. The ancient technology left behind by the precursor race was studied openly, its benefits shared equally among all species. The transformed Nexari provided invaluable insights into the technology they had hoarded for so long, while learning the value of imperfection and change from their former enemies. Their perfect cities were transformed into research centers, where species from across the galaxy came to study and collaborate. Maya stood on the observation deck of Lunar Station Alpha, where it had all begun. Below her, Earth shone like a jewel, its atmosphere now clear of alien influence. But the planet had changed, just as humanity had changed. Cities incorporated technology from a dozen worlds, and the streets were filled with beings from across the galaxy. We thought we were fighting to survive, she told a group of cadets, human, Keplerian, and even a few transformed Nexari. But we were really fighting for the right to grow, to change, to become something new. That's humanity's real legacy to the galaxy, not just the ability to adapt, but the understanding that adaptation works best when we face the future together. The war with the Nexari had ended, but humanity's journey was just beginning. The galaxy was vast, filled with wonders and challenges they had yet to discover. But whatever they found out there in the darkness between the stars, they would face it as they had faced the Nexari, with determination, adaptability, and an unwavering belief that the best way to survive was to help others survive with you. In the end, humanity's greatest victory wasn't defeating an empire. It was showing the galaxy a better way to live. The species that had evolved on a chaotic, ever-changing world had taught the stars themselves that perfection wasn't found in unchanging order, but in the endless dance of growth, change, and cooperation.